best way to fuel that. It will not be either or. It's going to be a series of ands. But I want folks to think about not the fuel, but how is the fuel going to be used?
To keep things provocative, I will respond and say we have to think about how the fuel is going to be used and the fuel itself. 45 years ago, we discussed whether or not we should import LNG into Hawaii. It was a big discussion in 1967 and 1968. We have a few clippings from that era of trying to get I think a Jones Act waiver, of course. Some things never change. And at the time, LNG was cheaper, and it was forecast to be cheaper than fuel oil. And sure enough, something happened. We didn't make that decision. We stuck with fuel oil. Natural gas prices essentially went through the roof and stayed there for the next 30 or 40 years. So I think we need to be cognizant of what the fuel is as well.
And I was going to say that's not entirely accurate. I think if you look at the long-term price of natural gas, it's actually been relatively stable for the last 20 years, and on a MMBTU on a energy content basis, it's been relatively stable for quite a long time. I think the real issue here is how does it fit into the long-range plans? And when we look at transportation in particular, there is, I think, a pretty good case that it needs to be considered as a transportation option because, frankly, when we look at our liquid fuel options for gasoline and diesel, there aren't really a lot of great cost-effective ways to reduce or eliminate that part of our agenda. We're going to try to continue to work on biofuels and biodiesel as cost-effective replacements, but truly on an equivalent cost basis, that's not there. So we're trying to keep an open mind on this, and I think we need to be pretty accurate about the facts.
And I would just also add, just harking back to my slides, that LNG we're viewing as an enabler. So when you're looking at LNG partnering with renewables, looking at the total energy cost to the system, not just LNG prices, because renewables are natural hedged. So I think how we're viewing it is we're looking at the total energy cost.
Okay, you'll be happy to hear there's another question on LNG. If we import LNG, would that also probably mean building new fossil fuel-based generation? How long will we be stuck with that? He tells you his inclination in the question. Okay, anybody want to take a whack at that one?
Yeah, I'll take a whack. So as we look at bringing in a lot of renewables into the system, we'll probably need to use a number of different tools to manage the variance of that input. Some of those tools are going to be grid-based, demand-responsive, and storage. Some of those are going to be more centralized storage. Some of them are probably more modernized generation that will be a lot more efficient and have the capabilities of ramping up and down. That combination, which you see in a microcosm in our happy islands, is just going to be repeated on a larger scale in the U.S. and is already in action in Europe. And that's the reality. It's a combination of resources, some of which actually is new generation that will run on a fuel and will have much better ramping characteristics. But the combination of all those features will enable us to put a lot of renewables in, and frankly, it will enable the retirement. This is critical because we built infrastructure 50 years ago, and it's over. And the steaminess that we have on the system are going to have to retire because they don't play gracefully with the future. And that's the real issue. The real issue is not whether we're going to have some fossil generation in the system. The issue is, does that fossil generation play gracefully and interact well with the future system, which is renewables and all its variants, or are we locking in a very inflexible system?
Anyone else on this? Sorry, we're not doing this in an oral question mode. Sorry, but you'll have plenty of time. I swear, you'll have time to network, and in fact, when the program is over, you can go rush the table and find them. Okay, so let's go to the next one. To Jeff, why do you want to promote storage arbitrage, whatever that exactly is?
Who asked this question? I hope it's not a team member. Really, we think overall it's going to reduce costs for everyone and enable the system to function better. Think of the Henk example again. He spent way too much money on that battery, and then he cut the cord when that battery could have been shared with the utility to help them deal with the ramp rates or to deal with frequency response or voltage control. And then he should be compensated for allowing his battery to be used in that way. So for the arbitrage issue, I mean, here, again, pricing electrons properly at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when we have a glut of solar on the system, maybe, the prices are going to be 10, 20 cents. I don't want to put a number out there and get stuck with that, but whatever that is. And then at 6 o'clock at night, when the sun goes down and we need all this energy, it might be worth 40 cents. So someone like Henk would love to have that battery there, filled up during the day and then sell you expensive power at 6 o'clock at night or whatever it is for dynamic pricing or what have you. So it should encourage folks to install what we need on the system, which is storage, and enable the proper pricing so we can take advantage of that technology.
Anyone else? Can we achieve our renewable goals while guaranteeing socioeconomic equality in the benefits, or are these two things mutually exclusive? Okay. Kyle, that sounds like you, Kyle.
Well, no, they're not mutually exclusive, but we're not necessarily going to go down a path either that says everything's all equal. That's necessarily that's a academic form of equality, but it's not an efficient form of equality. I think that the system has new players, and I think all the new players have to pay their share from the old system, and everyone's got to pay their share for the new system because that's what you're doing. And there's some equity in how we pay our shares. Those are the real challenges that we're gonna face. But there will be differences. Some people, we have this wonderful program the state's put together and the PUC's put together around on-bill financing and GEMS that's really trying to bring all the benefits of renewables down to the socioeconomic groups that otherwise can't access it. And that's a wonderful thing. That's one of the ways we're trying collectively to use our good faith and credit to make it more equal for everybody. But not everyone's going to do that irrespective. And so there will be differences in customers who make choices, but they'll be responsible for those choices.
Anyone else? Mark?
I was going to say that the way we view it is that we need to do better than we're doing today. And if we're able to do that, then we have achieved those goals. So I think Kyle adequately explained the opportunity of GEMS to serve the underserved. And that's an improvement when we're able to tie on-bill to building greater capacity to incorporate renewables and efficiency measures. But also, if we're able to, through greater renewables, compete favorably with the avoided cost of oil, as we do with biomass, with geothermal, with wind and PV, we're doing better. And that's what we need to continue to do.
Looks like we really hit the nerve. Oh, you want more?
One other point to make is to remind ourselves is that when you lower energy prices in the right way, you're also going to make food more affordable and more available, because the energy prices done the right way will increase the amount of water and water pumping, and in transportation it'll affect everything from a steak to your toilet paper. The whole thing, it all affects all of us. So by doing it comprehensively, these benefits are going to go much further than just this narrow look we've had on the electric company alone. So as a system, we're going to do a lot.
It looks like we're having repeated reference to LNG here. What percentage of our energy demand could be supported by renewable gas other than not LNG, I guess?
So we are looking at renewable natural gas. We have a RNG pilot project at the S&G plant. It has been in testing mode. I think what we found is that it is commercially, at the moment, it's difficult to scale it up to be commercial. So we've been exploring other opportunities for renewable natural gas, which is to develop and capture methane from wastewater treatment plants and landfills. And so we're right now I think, on Oahu, it's a small percentage of the overall energy demand, but we can see lots of opportunities on the neighbor islands, which we're exploring and we're excited about. So stay tuned.
Anybody else on that? Okay, is there any evidence that smart meters sustain energy conservation in the long run, thus justifying the costs of installing the meters? Jeff. It has your name written all over it.
Or a Mike Yamane question, if he's still here. I think some of it might be that kind of novel. People get installed, they do like the Romeros did, and they get all excited. But really what I think is going to fill in that is automation. And you see this with the Nest, or you see this with other third-party apps that come in. People don't, there's an O-Power study in the mainland that people think about electricity 6 minutes per year. So you're asking a lot. It's cognitively expensive to think about it, every day, all the time. So you're probably going to automate these things and just set it and forget it. And technology is going to enable that. So I think smart meters are that initial enabling tool to bring all these other third-party things to enable that to happen.
Anybody else?
Just want to say it's the portal to consumer choice. And when consumers get in the game, it will effectively bring down price.
Okay, how can we charge policymakers to make daring new policies to have real lasting impact, other than by Clean Energy Day itself?
Why don't we save this one for Senator Gabbard, who's up next?
That's the right answer, actually. Okay, what's next?
I guess we have to answer that.
Oh, you want more? Hawaii cannot import LNG forever. How will Hawaii Gas make money if it is not importing LNG at the end of the bridge? A lot of questions for you today, Alicia.
Well, Hawaii Gas is a regulated utility, so we do not make money on selling gas per se. So we are focused on transforming our business. Currently, our products are synthetic natural gas and propane, like I said today. But we are moving into renewable natural gas, and LNG is just one other product. So we will continue to move forward with growing our business and ensuring that we can deliver gas in the most cost-effective way to our customers.
Thank you. Okay, last question. As I mentioned before, we'll try to treat all the questions in talk shows. Okay, who should convene the key stakeholders group of decision makers? Isn't the glaring leadership gap one of our challenges? Oh. Okay, let's see who wants to get his arms around that one.
So really, the key to open and transparent government is that, in as much as the leaders in the executive branch, for example, and our agencies like ours, it really is important that we reach out and we make it as broad and expansive as possible. Sometimes, though, you have to have smaller discussions to be able to get anything done so it doesn't break down. But I think ultimately, like where we hope to head in the transportation charrette, for example, we really want to have really all those that are interested in participating at the table. So in a sense, you'll have a lot to do with making decisions on who's consulted.
I think this goes back to the point I was trying to make earlier, which is about trust and suspending disbelief. I think it's important to give this generation of leadership the opportunity to demonstrate that they can lead, the opportunity to demonstrate that they can work together, the opportunity to demonstrate they can build something that will be enduring, and see if they rise to the challenge and hold them accountable. And we are they, so it means hold all of us accountable. But I think we need to have that opportunity to see whether or not we can rise to this challenge, because the challenge is upon us. We actually, as I'll say again, can no longer delay decisions that we delayed 10 years. We're going to have to make them in the next 2 or 3.
Anybody else want to take a whack? The question is, who exactly should convene the key stakeholder group of decision makers?
since this is the last question, everyone needs to be at the table. I mean, that's the Hawaii way, and I think Alicia said it, that we all do need to, sometimes set aside our own agendas to look at the greater good. I would go back to, in my presentation, sharing this idea that we don't have that crystal ball, and that we really need to clear the path, because, we don't know what black swans are out there, or what things are available today that are going to be in excess if we just clear the path and enable them. So really being cognizant of it's difficult to predict the future.
Well, all I can say is Jim Lazar is sitting next to me, and he made it very clear the answer to the question is Sharon Moriwaki. Okay. There. Okay, so let's go to the questions now, the ranking. You guys came up with 2 rankings. Let's see. Focus new clean energy initiatives primarily on. Okay. If you haven't voted, vote. Interesting. The word new should have been underlined, so it's focused new clean energy initiatives primarily on. Okay, looks like we got the basic order of things, don't we? Okay, interesting group, this group here. Okay, let's go to the next one. Biggest long-term impact to reduce Hawaii's carbon footprint is energy efficiency. Whoops. Renewables. Whoops. If you haven't voted, vote. Okay. I think it gives us the idea. All right. Well, thank you, panel. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alicia. Great panel. These panels have been terrific. I'm so glad that we set it up this way. But we're not yet ready to party. There's one more important speaker, the Honorable Mike Gabbard, Chair of the Senate Energy and Environment Committee. He was still in the air from Washington, D.C. this morning. It would not greatly surprise me if he was there trying to fashion an initiative to get more money for the Federal Highway Trust Fund in Washington. So we are pleased he was able to get back in time to join us this afternoon. Senator Mike Gabbard, a warm welcome, a very warm welcome for Senator Gabbard.
Hello, my kako. As what are you smiling about? I just got off a 10-hour flight nonstop from Dulles Airport, and so I'm a little wasted. Not that kind of wasted. I'm jet lagged. I was in D.C. visiting my daughter, Tulsi, where I was shamelessly lobbying her about all things energy, and also hanging out with my other daughter, Davin, who is a U.S. Marshal. So if I start nodding out, just throw something at me, Carl, please, and I will try to. I was also on the East Coast attending the wedding of my nephew, Lieutenant Mike Gabbard. And I'm not sure why my brother would name his son Mike. I did tell Mike that after he retires from the military that he ought to move back to Hawaii and out to my district when I retire, because, name ID is everything in politics. My trusty office manager, who most of you know, Rock, tells me that the theme of today's program is getting our act together, and that this portion is called View from the Ledge, Next Steps. Well, here's my take on where we're going. Friends, right now, so many of us are on pins and needles waiting for HECO to announce the findings of their 4 representative studies of the Oahu grid and their responses to the PUC decisions and orders. And based on what I'm hearing from around the state, in my view, we're in crisis mode. And the big question that's looming is Former U.S. DOE Secretary and Nobel Prize winner Stephen Chu's recent statement true that we're nowhere near the problem threshold in terms of DG penetration? Or is HECO right in telling us that we need to slow it down in the interest of grid reliability? Or is this just a question of technical know-how? In my humble opinion, we need to look to those whose creativity and talent allow them to imagine and to build the future. In other contexts, these are people like Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who didn't look at the dominance of Borders and Barnes & Noble in book sales and see strength. He saw weakness and opportunity. Or Bill Gates looking at the computing industry. He didn't see the strength of mainframes, but saw their vulnerability compared to desktop PCs. The list goes on, and the point is clear, and the outcome is inevitable to those with talent and creativity, and that is that the regulated utility world looks like a bottomless pit of opportunity. What do I mean? Let's go back to the PUC's document, Inclinations on the Future of Hawaii's Electric Utilities, where it's clear that a lot of thought and work was put into giving the utilities some direction on what the PUC expects for creating the utility of the future. In the document, there's talk of modernizing the grid to integrate more clean energy, including both utility scale and distributed generation, lowering the cost of electricity, investing more in energy storage and demand response, development of microgrids and smart grid technologies, retirement of old fossil fuel plants, getting the utilities out of generation, and the development of a new regulatory incentive structure. Now, of course, all these things make sense. But if we achieve them, which is by no means guaranteed, we'll still be left behind as the electric power industry embraces relentless deregulation and technological innovation that will lower costs by integrating the lowest cost sources of energy and grid services, which today comes from PV and demand responses. So I'd like to add something to the conversation. What I'd like us to do is to embrace the bottom-up revolution that is democratizing our energy system. Bob Graves of the Governing Institute described it this way, and I quote, "Monopolies, like monarchies, have inherent flaws, not the least of which is that the vast majority of people prefer to have a say about how they run their lives. Simply put, we prefer choices," unquote. And consider this, is the model that is essentially the same one that Thomas Edison created with the Pearl Street Station, which started generating electricity on September 4th, 1882, to power a few hundred lamps for about 90 customers in New York City. Is that the right fit for meeting our electricity needs in 2030 and beyond? And should these entities continue to exert such enormous control over people's lives? Well, how about this? Why not think out of the box for a moment and consider a post-utility world? Oh my God, did Chairman Gabbard just really say post-utility? Yes, I did. And when I say post-utility, I don't mean the utilities are going to shut down tomorrow or that there won't be a place in the energy mix for them. But folks, the fact is that the Elon Musks and other titans of Silicon Valley are doing their very best to figure out a way for us to totally revolutionize our energy systems. And my bet is that they're going to be the first ones to cross the finish line. But don't just take my word for it. David Crane, CEO of NRG, a Fortune 500 energy company, says, and I quote, "We're sort of where long-distance fixed-line telephony was in 1985. Right now, it's about the time where you can say it's the end of the long-distance fixed-line world. Let's just call it game over. Cell phones won." But it took 25 years. If we assume the pace of change accelerates, I definitely think there's going to be a significant decline in the significance of big power plants. But they're still going to be around as the backbone of the grid for another 20 years. And this is a continuation of the quote, by the way. I think what's more interesting long term is that ultimately, does the grid just become a backup system the way the post office is effectively a backup system for Federal Express and UPS for high-value mail? Or do we actually get to the point where we are tearing down the grid because it's actually not being used at all? Unquote. The fact is, Hawaii is being looked at as the model for creating a truly clean energy economy, but the verdict is still out on whether we're going to get there. My point is that we really need to ramp up this conversation of what the future holds for this battle that is waging between the traditional, vertically integrated utility-driven electricity system on the one hand and the new, consumer-driven, distributed generation model that is evolving at a lightning pace on the other. Next steps, I think we should take the conversation one step farther and imagine a post-utility world where the consumer is in charge, much like what's happened in the telecommunications and computer industries. My friends, as I gaze into my jet-lagged crystal ball, in my view, this is likely our future. Mahalo.
Wow. We've come to the end of a chock-block day. We've covered a lot of ground. I hope you learned as much as I did. The good thing is there are a lot of committed people here who are doing a lot about energy, and things are changing, and we can come away with hope and some actions to begin working on for the change. We heard from you what we should be working on now and in the coming year. And let's see, can you give me a list of our conclusions based on from the various panels and the various votes?
Okay, so we had 153 people in the system.
This is Alex Burgo, by the way.
Thank you, guys. What I find really interesting about events like this is that you guys are the experts, and we try to give you a voice. And I think everybody in panels now can better know what everybody is thinking. So we had 153 people in the system. For panel 1, we did Q&A, and we did pick top actions to do in order of importance. And you guys said implement time of use pricing for all and focusing on conservation for high-cost hours as the most important ones. Another thing you said about installing smart grid innovations will, in the long run, actually increase customer costs and have little net impact on customer cost. So there's two discrete opinions in the audience, which actually shows the complexity of the problem very well. For panel 2, getting the Utilities Act together, how Hawaii energy utilities are owned, managed, and regulated needs substantial improvements. And so that's a 60% of the audience voting on that. Oh, can you guys hear me? So another one, choose what needs the most improvement for energy utilities. You say lower customer bills and more renewable energy and energy efficiencies. Another one was select the best way for the utility to communicate with you. And direct email is the primary answer there. And the utility website to improve information and communication. For panel 3, the transportation panel, you voted on new measures to improve transportation and what it should focus on. And reducing vehicle miles traveled is the high priority. By 60%, voted that is the most important part, in addition to providing electric vehicle infrastructure. And so another one was Hawaii should fund innovative transportation. The taxes on fuels and motor vehicle registration fees, in addition to increasing federal funds. I think that shows that use tax is kind of the idea around that. For panel 4, implementing clean energy, what must happen? Focus new clean energy initiatives primarily on electric power sector and ground transportation sector. And that was by a high vote. And the final one was the biggest long-term impact to reduce Hawaii carbon footprint is increasing renewable energy generation. The audience seems pretty split up here. If you guys want a detailed report, just email me at alex@livesif.com. If you have any questions, it's really easy to use and set up. It's literally a click of a button and you're good to go. And so thank you guys for participating.
Thank you, Alex. Great. Livesif.com really helps. Okay, in fact, the conversation's just begun. We hope you will stay and continue the conversation, the dialogue out there. We learned more about the past. We're more excited about the future today. I hope you feel the same way. So please help me with a big hand and a warm thanks to Jim Lazar, Jay Ignacio, and Mayor Alan Arakawa. They came from off island. They get a special mahalo. Also a big hand to all our panelists who I hope you will have a chance to network with at our Pauhana Power Party in the courtyard. Ready, go. Okay, the food's not good. The food's really good, rather. As you know from lunch, raise a glass of beer or a glass of wine and toast energy in Hawaii in this Energy Day. Visit our exhibitors and thank our sponsors, Hawaii Energy, the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute, Hawaii Electric Company, Ulupono Initiative, the State Energy Office at DBED, Blue Planet Foundation, LiveSIF.com, and ThinkTech, and our exhibitors and volunteers. Before you leave, fill out the evaluation forms so we can do a better 7th Annual Clean Energy Day. We have gift prize drawings, so that will incentivize you. And a big surprise, an important surprise, a surprise out of the past that touches our hearts. Okay, Senator Gabbard, who is in another kind of view of himself, our view of himself. He's a rock star entertainer, and he is going to grace us with his music, and he's going to lead us in Aloha Oi, Hawaii Aloha, singing the words that are on the screen. What? Oh, they have Blue Planet has a contest on, what was it? How many? What's the base load at this point in time today? 5:30 today. Okay, that's outside. Senator Gabbard, it's wonderful that you come and talk to us and sing to us.
Thanks for having me.
I know that we're all going to sing with you.
Well, this is traditional. We have to do this together. And if you guys would get out of your chairs and form like a semicircle and hold hands, we can do the proper protocol. May I have the other microphone for my guitar? This is serious business. How's that? You know, at these functions that we go to, most of the time we just sing the first verse. But I'd like to do all 3 verses. The words are here. Please check out the English, written by a pastor back in the 1800s, Lorenzo Lyons, and he was set to music by a tune by James McGranahan. So please join in. E Hawaii e kuone hanawe Ku'uhome kula'irine Oli no awi na pono lanio E Hawaii aloha E haoli na opio Hawaii Aina ahe ahe makani e pamaine Auke aloha no Hawaii E ha'i mai ko mau kini lani e ko mau kupa aloha e Hawaii na mea oli no ka maha'o no luna mai e Hawaii aloha e haoli na o Hawaii nei oli mai na ahe makani e pamai au ke aloha no Hawaii na ke akua e malama mai a oi ko mau kua lono aloha nei ko mau ka Hawaii o lino mau o mau mala puanani e haoli na o pio Hawaii nei oli mai na ahe makani e pamai au ke aloha no Hawaii. And the hands go up now.